Hey one, hey all, welcome back to my channel where I talk all things comics. This episode is going to be a little lengthier than usual because the storyline was 4 years in length. So I'm trying to truncate it into maybe a half hour. I'm going to shoot for it, okay? Growing up in the 70s, and then even in the 80s and the 90s, subplots were a big deal with comics. They're not much anymore because books tend to relaunch constantly, and you can't really refer to the previous creator just because they want to go off in different directions, or it's the hubris of the next writer to just say, fuck it, whoever, I didn't care what the other guy did. So this is back in the age of sitcoms, the age of I just said the word a minute ago. Subplots. Okay. Well, this one has to deal with Reed Richards, our very own Mr. Fantastic, in the Fantastic Four. Look at that gorgeous cover by Rich Buckler and Joe Sinnott. Well, for 4 years, Reed Richards started losing his stretching power, and he eventually lost it entirely, and then he got it back. But we're talking 40 issues later. And that's what I loved, because Roy Thomas started it, and Len Wein and Marv Wolfman just followed through with it. And I don't even know if they were given a directive at the time, because the editor-in-chief position had changed so much. So I think it was sort of like when you're passing a baton, and you just say, okay, do what you can with this. And back then, I mean, these guys all were seasoned writers for quite a few years. So we're going to find out about Reed Richards, our very own Mr. Fantastic. This is volume, this is 197, but it's like more like volume 15. So I love the Marvel Masterwork format. I'm not shy about it. And why should I be? It's a great format. Well, we're going way back. Hit the Wayback Machine there. Okay. To Fantastic Four 56. And at the time, Buckler was doing a lot of a Kirby riff, but then he was also doing new figures that were Kirby-esque. And at the time, it was kind of neat. And it was definitely new to people like me in the 70s, and we'd see stuff in the reprints of Marvel's Greatest Comics, where there were direct swipes that Buckler did of Kirby. And it was kind of funny because a few issues earlier, he wholesale swiped a scene that has to take place in an arena, and he borrowed these monsters from... oh, shush. Shush, you little monsters. We're not discussing it. So, anyway. Hey, come here, silly. Okay. A few issues earlier, Rich Buckler used these wholesale swipes from King Size Fantastic Four Volume 5, I think, with Psycho Man. And as a kid, I thought it was cool, but looking back, I'm like, it's kind of wacky, but it was a matter of consistency. And Joe Sinnott was one of the few people who had an annual contract specifically to keep the look of the Fantastic Four consistent no matter who drew it. And we fans were all the better for it. So here comes the Silver Surfer. He didn't show up a lot because Stan Lee sort of made an edict that he only would write the Silver Surfer if he was going to be solo, but once in a while, he looked the other way. The story was cool. So they're in Dr. Doom's castle, and the doors are closing in, that old shtick. And Mr. Fantastic's finding a little airtight crevice, not airtight crevice. So they can't find Reed for a while. They're wondering what the blue blaze is going on. And he sees the wall come up. I think the Ben Grimm does, and he's like, "Doom's put in more secret passages than Vincent Price ever thought of. Hey, is that Reed? Or one of old Tin Head's androids? Talk up fast, or Benji's gonna make like O.J. Simpson." It's Reed, pal. And they come in, and amazingly, this almost alerted me, but Roy Thomas is very verbose, like a lot of people, like Stan, and like a lot of, that was a 70s thing, even the 80s thing. But he goes, sorry, Ben, I had a little trouble getting my shape back, my breath too. Couldn't answer you for a moment there. Anyway, I managed to corral these three. So that's just like a little hint. And it is a small hint. Look at that logo, Zugzwang. I mean, that chapter title. It's a chess term, but that's just so Bronze Age audacious, and it's kind of dopey when you think of it. So, a few more issues go by, and, Torch is feeling self-pity, and Pietro is running like he's flexing his muscles the whole way instead of having a thinner build. But that was comics. Everybody had specifically in Marvel, they had they made everybody muscular. Reed Richards was, which he shouldn't be. And then when John Byrne took over, he got these form-fitting suits that were better, and Reed he wasn't the muscle man, and neither was the Torch and all that. So they go through this two-part story with the Inhumans, and okay, I'm jumping ahead now because that story I just showed you a glimpse of, it was originally going to be a part of Marvel's giant-size Fantastic Four number 5, and it never. And all of a sudden, the giant-size format got canceled, and so they split up a lot of stories into 2 stories. They did that with the Assassin 2-part storyline by Tony Isabella and Don Heck, which showed up in Avengers 145, 146. And, I thought this was like printing money, but I guess because of inflation at the time and, 50 cents, I didn't mind it. But that's just me. I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Marvel fan, so. Now, we jump ahead to the second suggestion. First, I gotta show you an incredible cover. Excuse me. Excuse me. Oh, that's a great cover. That's so cool. Cool. And so we see Reed doing the old Danger Room thing. If you look at it, honestly, it seems weird that every Danger Room and every superhero comic always is different than the previous, because that's a lot of work. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of manpower to be put into that. But the X Mansion and everything. But it was fun. It was a conceit of the time, and we just bought into it. And so Reed dodges a little more. I was like, then it's true. Never dare to admit the possibility, even to myself. I'm losing my elasticity, my power of stretch and retract fully. La 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 la. So he's trying to keep it down, and so I thought I heard a door slam. So he's not saying anything. He's like, I don't know, my darling. Must find out. That kind of stuff. So issues come and issues go. And we got a wacky galactic goalie, and that, I believe, is a response to the black, what was it? The black racer, the guy on the skis, which was a response to the Silver Surfer. So things got really nutty. Now this has the contents of the next Marvel Masterworks, which I missed out on, but now it goes for like $160 on eBay and such. So I got this more affordable trade paperback, which is fine. If I can go softcover, I will, because I'm into quantity, dudes. Okay, now they're fighting the Crusader. Great story. I'm not going to go into it because it's just way too long. You can find elsewhere. Well, Crusader got away, and Reed's going to go look after him. So I'm trying to do that 1960s cartoon sound effect. So he makes his legs like stilts and goes around. And George Perez made this really wild outfit for Johnny. But you know what? The 70s, the mid-70s, that would be really killer. That was really styling at the time. It sounds silly, but if you look at old clips, you'll see women walking around with bikini tops and jeans, as just a casual clothes. So, look at George Perez. He's just God, I miss him. He's so incredible. I mean, who? That's so daunting to do that kind of angle. It's so audacious. And he loved drawing buildings. And so he kind of got traded off from FF to Avengers, and sometimes Marvel 2-in-1, sometimes the Inhumans, a little of everything. Well, I'm jumping ahead to a later issue where this has to do with Mr. Fantastic still. It's Perez inked by Vinnie Coletta, which isn't so bad, but it's not ideal. But the storytelling is so strong, it doesn't matter in a sense. But anyway, the Hulk hits the wing of the plane by accident, and so Reed gets ready, and so the Torch and Reed are ready to somehow get everybody home safely, or land safely, and he's straining and straining, but he's strong enough to help get the plane down with the Torch's help. That is so staggeringly great. I mean, for someone to... You tell any artist, okay, now draw this scene. A lot of them probably couldn't, because it's very outrageous. Okay, a couple issues later, the Hulk's stirring up shit again. It's a long story. But the Thing turns into Ben Grimm because he's been in proximity with the Hulk's gamma radiation for a long time. They were teaming up for a little bit. And so, I mean, now you got one guy losing his powers. One guy lost his powers completely. Does this mean the end of the Fantastic Four? Later on, John Byrne would parody that to no end, because that was always like a Lee and Kirby kind of tag. So, anyway, I'm going way past. Okay, Luke Cage Power Man fills in for the Thing, and then Ben Grimm gets an exoskeleton, but then there's more. So, they're both Reed and Ben are hogtied by these aliens, and all of a sudden, boink! He has this retraction button in his Thing suit. So you still have Ben Grimm hopping around. Reed says, "Great! Now that I'm free, I can stretch again, at least within my new limits." New limits? I don't dig, Reed. What? I'll tell you about it later. So, they're still fighting. I mean, he's still capable. Let me put it that way. Okay. Exciting, isn't it? Anyway, Galactus is towards the end of this yet another story. I love they knock Galactus down. He's just kind of like, like he's leisurely sitting on air. Well, Galactus zaps the Thing. He don't know what's going on. And, but, of course, Ben becomes the Thing again. It was like Galactus was screwing him over. He's like, you mess with me, I'll fix you. There. Now, okay. Now, that was just a sidebar with Ben Grimm, since I didn't want to skim over it because it was a powers-related situation. Okay, number 17. You'll notice I don't keep the dust covers consistent. I said it before, I'm more quantity than quality, but I do like quality. It's just that I'm not going to spend more just to have all the dust jackets look the same. It's like if I get a deal on something, I get a deal on something. And this was a weird year because in this span between issue 180 and 190, there were 2 reprint issues and 1 album issue, which is like one of those issues that recounts all that's happened until then. It's filler generally. Fantastic Four. See if I got any further. Well, in their absence, the Frightful Four have taken over the Baxter Building. It's really good stuff. Really, really fun stuff. And, Reed's trying to stretch, and he goes, my stretching power is gone. So he does his clobbering time thing. So now, officially, Reed is powerless. So, much later on, several stories later, anyway, they find out that Franklin's disappearing yet again, their son. Put on your uniform. Maybe three should go without me. Minus my power, only getting away. If your stretching powers were just all you contributed to the FF, we could replace you with a rubber band, and that's not true, and you know it. Put on this blasted costume, then let's get moving. And then later on, we'll take them back off. So, anyway, they head on out to Whisper Hill, which is where Agatha Harkness, the witch babysitter, who's been around since issue 94 or something that Lee and Kirby created. So he's, he's going through a lot of self-doubt, but he says, nothing will stop me from saving my son. That much I know to be true. And they do eventually. And I'm skimming over because, these are good stories. Read them. However, if I were an editor now, and if these books came out now, I would cross out a lot of sentences that were kind of redundant. But at the time, I think it was one of those things where the writers felt if they didn't fill the page with words, they weren't earning their money. I really get that impression. So that just became a habit. Well, he's having a stogie, gets lit. He's like, hey, you're stretching again. Why are you wearing the old uniform? It was like black instead of like the clear blue. And she's like, your powers came back. I wish I were true, Sue. But his powers are just auto extenders that he did years ago back in FF39 when Daredevil helped them against Dr. Doom. And so he's got this, mechanical arms, and you can't stretch the rest of them. But hey, it's good for getting stuff off high shelves, So, like your Home Depot or something. Well, I love that. That is great. That's a George thing. I mean, some things you just say. This is the Marvel way. So George Perez thought she'll doff her civilian clothes using a force field. Fucking genius. George. Miss you. So, anyway, Reed's still blocking the bad guys, only mechanically. And, another thing. George has endless designs of characters. I can't even imagine the thousands of characters he's designed over the years. El Sacco and Thorn with two N's, and Vacuum. And so they're fighting around. So this Brutus guy, he goes, do surrender. His arms are artificial. The spell that transformed us could work solely against the natural powers of Fantastic Four. Now, by utilizing artificial means against us, you have returned us to what we were. Now, this battle should never have occurred, because just because he squished it and discovered it, from the very beginning they shouldn't have had the powers, because he was there without his powers. But, that was just one of those things you went along with way back when. And there's something to be said for that. Like, there are conceits of comic books, like why the Avengers would all meet in one place, whether it's a mansion or Avengers Tower or whatever. So this other story has Claw, Black Panther's enemy, and Miracle Man, Molecule Man, teaming up. And so anyway, he manages to pull the wires, whatever wires they are. He's just checking out. Look at this one. I think I'll just take a look at it. No, you must not touch it. And he ignores her like a dope. And now he is the Molecule Man, because anybody who touches the wand becomes Molecule Man. There was an issue, Giants Iron Man Annual number 3, which is by Steve Gerber and Sal Buscema and Jack Abel. They did an issue where this young, 9-10-year-old girl grabbed the wand in the swamp where Man-Thing resides, and she became the Molecule Man / girl. And so, more George Perez genius. Molecule Man's doing this thing, tearing shit up, but I can't imagine hardly anybody, on a monthly schedule, making a building come to life. And visually making it believable. It's so creepy and so scary. There's some amazing stuff here. So, anyway, at the end, Reed's kind of like, I can't have you risk your lives saving me. I can't be the fifth wheel. He's like, I'm just a man, gotta get used to it. And the Watcher hangs out for a while. And I guess he knew it was like a huge eventful thing that they were going to break up. So the Watcher was kind of, I mean, it wasn't, I don't think it was Watcher-worthy event. Because, they're going to get back together eventually. So, he's held up in his asbestos blanket or something like that. Before asbestos we knew the properties of it was negligible on human beings. So he's like, I knew we were really split BFF, Stretcho. It doesn't change a thing, but it's hard to believe when it's over. We have to admit it. So they put the sign on the door. They're solemn. And so Reed still does not have stretching powers. And we are at issue... Hang in there, everybody. We're like at issue 191. So remember, 159 is when his powers started to wane, gradually. So, nice Kirby cover. Oh, beautiful Kirby cover. Excuse me a second. So, nice Kirby cover. This is by Marv Wolfman. Like I said, the baton was passed to him, and he handled it really well. And again, a lot of this stuff could be trimmed, and especially the stuff like, oh no, can't dodge in time. But that was a sort of a thing that initially Stan wanted to be clear as possible. If something one of the artists may not have made crystal clear, or it just became, as I said, fill up the book with words so people get run for their money or a lot of reading. So Reed's sitting around Sue, and he's like, overqualified for everything. And this guy shows up, offers him a job. And he's like, okay, let's see. So, Diablo! Yes. And Darklock, I think his name is. So Reed's working in this place that really has advanced science that intrigues him. So it's not stuff that he's just going through the motions. He's really intrigued by it. But he's kind of left... It's left up to being a mystery for a while. And he gets an explanation why. Now, the inks are different here because it is Pablo Marcos filling in for a couple issues. I think while Joe Sinnott was doing the FF Annual at the time. But anyway, he doesn't know about the Mystery Project, and it's given the impression... basically, it's a lot like the Manhattan Project, where they didn't tell everybody what they were working on. We are given only one section of a puzzle. I've heard rumors that there are other scientific teams working on connected problems. So there is a precedent for that sort of stuff. It's not bullshit. But meanwhile, sinisterly, he's becoming suspicious. What should I... silence you bumbling simpleton. That's a real good way to, cheer up the troops by calling somebody a bumbling simpleton. So, anyway, there's Big Bad Namor, but that's not crucial right now. The Invincible Man comes back. Now, this is how geek, the post-league writers were, as they would bring up a character that was a one-shot character way back in that really wasn't that great. But they make it work. They update it because originally Invincible Man was Johnny and Sue's father, and then he died, I think, nobly at the end or some crap. So he's having these nightmares, but he doesn't know his mind is being tampered with. So this guy's like growling at him and such, and we're using Psycho Man. Whee! So we're coming along, and FF are kind of reuniting, but not as a team per se. So I'm just glossing over it. This new, what did I call his name? Oh, Invincible Man is Reed under hypnosis, and he defeats the other FF. And it's just, I don't even know why it has to be that. So I mean, I could read saying that, but I ain't got time. And so it's beautiful, like kaleidoscope kind of mechanism Kirby-esque sort of thing that Keith Pollard was excellent as. Keith Pollard is grossly underrepresented in the comic books history. He did Thor, he did Fantastic Four, and he did Spider-Man. And in Spider-Man, he did a little bit of a Ditko feel to it, but his storytelling was great. But I just don't get it. He's a fantastic artist. Dr. Doom. That's kind of similar to the one that Rich Buckler did a while back, but I did my homework. It's not a steal. So, 197. Woohoo! We're talking 38 issues later after the hint of his power being gone. He gets his powers back. Now, this cover is actually designed by Dave Cockrum and drawn by Perez and inked by Sinnott, which is kind of funny because Perez never really needed a layout artist, but Dave Cockrum was the cover designer for a while. Years back, it was Marie Severin, and then she got moved over to production. So, for some reason, for some crazy reason, Reed's given an opportunity to fly back up to regain his powers, and he has no idea what's going on. He says, I don't like any of this. Why are you helping me regain my powers? And he's like, believe me, I wish to tell you, but I won't bore you with paranoid. Okay, forget it. I ran out of words because I didn't feel like reading it. So, they go nice little green. What do they call those things? Good and plenties. the candy hits him, and all of a sudden the Red Ghost shows up. The Red Ghost was originally this heavy-set guy who wore this big old coat and babushka and stuff, and he was working with the communists at the time, and now he's like a free agent. So he's like, hey, I don't need that. So Reed gets like a mace-like hand. That's great too. See, he's like, I feel more powerful than before. And, of course, Reed's trapped, halfway solidified through the floor. He tells him, well, whatever happened to him, blah, 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 blah. He gets out barely. And then, see, that's why I say Keith Pollard is so underestimated and shamefully ignored by the comics fans in general, because that's a classic sort of John Buscema pose, or George Perez pose, or Kirby pose, and yet it's its own thing. I mean, look at all the muscle he puts into that, and the foreshortening. It's just brilliant. And so he gets his power back, and he flies over to Latveria, and he's trying to figure out what's going on here. Something's not kosher, but I got my powers back, and I know the team is stuck in Latveria. And he does all kinds of cool stuff. Okay, well, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Dr. Doom creates... Here's the thing. He wanted Reed's powers so he can give the son of Dr. Doom all the powers of all four of them. I mean, sure, it's wacky in today's world, but, it was just a comic book back then. And some comics should just stay comic books, not like lecture bots or, boring, chit-chat. These guys are dressed for action. Don't have them loiter. So anyway, the son of Dr. Doom comes along, and he ends up killing this so-called son of Doom, but it was actually his clone that he tried to pass as a son. There we go. That's great. Look at that. Reed Richards against Dr. Doom, and forever you would never think that was a fair matchup, but we shall see. And I love that. Oy, 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 oy. So, why was I forced to slay my own clone? Why am I cheated out of victory that should rightfully be mine? Why? Okay, that's enough of that. Okay, and if you're still watching, thank you. I know it was kind of obnoxious. So, we get to see this kaleidoscope thing again. And he's planning on using it on pretty much everybody. Reed shows up, puts this mechanism on Doom's back. Boom. What have you done? The terminals in my armor refuse to respond. You've destroyed my fighting capabilities. And I have never seen Mr. Fantastic so fucking badass as I see in this issue. Anyway, this, I don't know. It's a long story. And, read it. It's good stuff. I don't want to be doomed. Bam. So, I shall be forced to destroy you at all time. Wow, that's a beautiful page. And some more spiky fist goodness. I mean, it was so mind-blowing to see Reed cut loose like that. It took 200 issues to do it, but I mean, he's more formidable than anybody would imagine. So, so he's choking him, and Reed has his glasses on for the same reason Doom has his helmet on, because that kaleidoscope gizmo, it's so bright and overwhelming that it could drive somebody mad. So he loosens Von Doom's armor, his face, and no! So the intensified reflections of the solar-powered mechanism can drive him mad. My grotesque face. And he's like, he had to be him or me. Dr. Doom had to be stopped. And this madness stuff, whatever these madness rays, they end up wearing off. And that's it. That is it. And the FF are back to stay. So imagine, if you will, an era with a 4-year subplot. And I think, aside from relaunching so many times, comics also write for the trade paperback, and you can't really have subplots rolling along in one trade paperback and kind of bully the reader into saying, "Oh, you got to get the next one by this different team that you don't like," or vice versa. And God, I never say vice versa. So anyway, I hope you learned a little something from this. This was stuff I grew up with, and I enjoyed it, and I couldn't wait till the next issue because of stuff like this. Because of subplots. The ones I didn't like were the ones like where you'd see a clear silhouette of Doc Ock with his 4 extra arms wiggling around, and then the writer-editor would be coy and say, "Oh, who's this entering Peter Parker's life again? Well, stay tuned, Effendi." And, that kind of stuff. It was just like, please, I'm a little kid. I get it. I'm not a moron. Or, worse yet, a lot of times, the main character would be on the cover, the main bad guy, and then there would be silhouettes aplenty throughout the book, and I'm like, who are they kidding? Unless you can buy a coverless comic. I'll show you right here. Considers a little bonus action, okay? Okay. Whoa, okay. Going back. This was an excellent story, okay? The Merman. Now, this looks like collaborating Keith Pollard, but I don't know who inked it. It's very different, and I'm not that keen on it for whatever reason. The FFR team, again, Bill Manilow wrote this, so we know the Mole Man's in this. We know it, okay? We saw the cover. Okay. And it's a real fun story. Fred Hembeck actually praised this because it had a lot of classic things in it that made the FF fun in the early 60s. So now this guy comes out in the shadow, and it's like, who can it be? Well, I saw the cover, and I also kind of recognize that big old schnoz right down there. And that's the only thing that kind of annoys me about some of the Bronze Age stuff. And, years later it went on, too. It's like, do-de-do-de-do. It's like, oh, it's the Mole Man. Oh, I can't believe it. So, I mean, those, I don't know. The cover should have had them attacked by something underground, but not shown the Mole Man. So, me being the expert editor and writer and snotty bastard that I am, anyway, I'm going to remind you of our sponsor, which is a one, a two, a three. A three-story arc, complete, in novelettes, about 200 pages each. Each individually can be read in no particular order. It's The Demands, and it's about a young lady named Lady Kilburn who moves to Pittsburgh, decides to form a indie rock group, and they play a lot of bars and clubs in Pittsburgh that are owned by the Russian mob. And there's a lot of problems that ensue as a result. There's just there's a lot of snarkiness. There's a lot of musical wordplay. There's a lot of violence going down. There's a little bit of the sex, drugs, rock, and or roll, which sounds cliche, but they're not cliche here. I really put a new spin on them. And I really recommend these are on Amazon. You can get them on Kindle Unlimited for free. And no less than Chuck Dixon has said Thurston Funny Shotgun Pros, and Mike Barron as well has sung my praises, as well as a whole host of people. So check it out on Amazon. And so I even made like the logo like an old concert ticket. So no bottles or glasses. So I'm just like retentive. But that's about it, everybody. And hey, hope you have a good weekend. It's Friday, the 3rd or 4th or something like that in November. See ya. Till next time.